What's going on, everybody? Godzilla Options here with your weekly setups going into the week of February 13th, 2023. Before we get started, remember that the 14th is Valentine's Day, so make sure you tell the one that you love that you really do love them, and hopefully you'll be able to take some of the profits in the stock market that you've made and put them to something nice. Feel free to leave a nice comment below for me too. That would really make my day on Valentine's Day. So the market pretty much went sideways this week, so a lot of what we're going to go over could go either way in this coming week. And before we really get started at looking at the setups that Smart Trades and I have for you, let's take a look at the upcoming economic calendar for the week. That will likely move the markets, and we'll go over a weekly recap of what we did last week. So let's get to it. So another element that we're going to add to the weekly watch is the upcoming economic calendar. Hopefully y'all find this useful. I would love to hear so in the comments, or if there's a particular section that you just don't really find much of a use for. Again, I'd love to hear that in the comments. Always looking to make these videos better. Everybody is so quiet when it comes to whether they like content or not. So it's hard for us creators of stuff like this to really know what is resonating and what isn't. So please leave a comment. All right, so this coming week, the week of February 13th, this is what is in store. Nothing really huge on Monday the 13th, but on Valentine's Day, we're going to have CPI data come out. So here are the expectations over here in the median forecast column. So let's see what ends up happening there. The expectation looks like is that CPI year over year is going to be coming down a little bit just based off what the previous report was. So 6.5% as opposed to 6.2. And core CPI doesn't look like it's going to really be changing a lot there. So that is Tuesday. If we look at Wednesday, we have retail sales numbers and manufacturing, industrial index as well. So these can move things a little bit, especially when you're looking at, Target, Walmart, those type of stocks. And then Thursday, we have more jobless claims. The previous was this past week of 196,000, and it looks like somehow the initial jobless claims is supposed to go up more, and doesn't look like they have any idea what the what is this called period. Okay, yeah, this for this past week. So they don't really have much of an idea what the expectation for continuous jobless claims is going to be. But then we have our PPI index as well, info coming out. So let's see. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are definitely days that could be moving the market. So be aware of that if you're going to be swing trading anything. All right, let's go over a trade recap from last week. We had 4 on our list. The first one was C or Citigroup. We were looking for a entry trigger below the failed 2 down of the weekly here, below $50.53, which we did end up getting triggered for a full move down to $49.15. So if you caught the full move, you had a good profit there. Now, if we move down to the daily and take a look at what really happened, we broke down here on Thursday. So Thursday was definitely the day that you would have been able to get some good profit. Tuesday is pretty much a fake out, so it broke down through here. You were still able to secure some profit here if you got like the $50 puts like I suggested, and that would have given you a little bit of profit, probably, good 20-30%. I took that I took profit at 20%. That's just kind of my standard. I want to make sure that I lock in gains, and I left a runner, and then got stopped out here. I did end up getting back in on Thursday, and that did end up giving me some good profit when I swung it and sold the rest that I had on Friday here. But I did not sell at the bottom. I kind of sold down on the way here. I think 49.50 was my particular area just because of the number. So that is going to be Citigroup. That was a success. Next on the watch list was Boeing or BA. We were looking for a 2 down move. Now, we did caution that this has been in sort of a bull flag scenario here. So this is one thing that we definitely expected as a potential fake out. So when I was talking about Boeing, I was really looking for a drop through the monthly 50% fib here that we have up around the 204.30, 204.30. 52 area, sorry, $204.52 area. And then we had a really shallow price target of $203.11 with this previous this previous outside bar. So we were looking for a 322 reversal. And then I wanted to see the price target, I wanted to see $192.40 as our price target there. Obviously, that didn't really work out. We would have been able to get a very modest gain. We got really close to the initial price target of $203.11 with that outside bar low, but after that, things just kind of recuperated and moved right back up into the area that we were sitting at the previous week. So Boeing, very, very modest winner. Probably couldn't even get 20% out of it. But at the same time, you could have locked in some profit if you went that way. So that is Boeing. Definitely wouldn't consider that a winner. Last week, MU was a two down candle with a doji, and we were looking at downside move really, but there was really no trigger since we ended up on an inside week. Sorry about all the lines. I already charted MU, and you'll be able to watch that here in a minute when you go through and actually look at what we have on the watch list this week. But just pretend this one bar doesn't exist. So we were looking for a drop below $58.65 for a price target down here around the $55.31 area. Obviously, that didn't happen inside week. So as we'll see here in the watch list when we go over MU, I'll give you the game plan for that one. So this was nothing, not a fail, not a winner at all, because it didn't move. And last on the list was V or Visa. We were looking for a 312 down. We did get the weekly trigger here at $227.64 to the downside. Actually, let's just go ahead and clear this out. Did get the weekly trigger, put trigger to the downside there, $227.64. Our price target is $216.63. Now, you had to end up waiting pretty much all week for V to do something. It consolidated around here and then finally broke down on Friday. So hopefully you didn't get 0 DTEs. If you did do that, shame on you for doing that on a Friday. But at the same time, if you did end up getting next week's expiration, there is definitely some more downside here that looks like it could end up moving all the way down to that price target of $216.63. So can't really call MU a winner or a loser yet. What we're going to do is put a pin in it, and I'll make a note to go back over this one again in our next weekly watch video, which would obviously be next weekend. So be on the lookout for more of a synopsis on V to see if we end up getting that $216.63 area. All right, so we're going to start off the market recap by looking at SPY. Just to give any newcomers a refresher here, what we have is already charted key levels. We have the weekly in yellow, the quarterly in this like lighter yellow-ish color, the monthly in the blue, and if I were to actually scroll out or zoom out a little bit more, we have yearly in the peach, so the yearly high and the yearly low down here, the same as the quarter for most things right now. So then we have the 50% fib. This is an indicator I built in Thinkorswim, just maps out the 50% fib on any time frame that you give it. I'll put a link to the description or to the indicator in the description field. So what are we looking at from an outlook perspective? Well, we had an inside week, so that ended up being a week with a lot of chop, which is probably what was expected just because of so much uncertainty with everything that the Fed and Jay Powell has said over the course of the week. So, when we have inside weeks like this, we call it the chop shop in the strat, just because if you look at something on a smaller time frame like the daily or even smaller, 4 hour, 1 hour, it's just a lot of up and down, not things actually moving in a direction. And if you're playing options, especially weekly options, that is a way for you to get taken out of a trade very quickly and lose money. So what we're really looking for in any price action strategy is going to be some market structure breaks. So let's talk about what we think could happen this next week, or what I want to see happen at least. So the 2-1 setup in the strat is one that you can play in either direction, right? So we can be looking at an upside move. So over $416.49, we get an upside move with a very shallow price target / first resistance area of $418.31 up here. And then on the downside, if we were going to see a continued down week, which is very possible as well here, just because, again, we don't know with consolidation, that's the 1 bar, we have a entry below 405 and 1 cent, $405.01, with a larger price target of $400.28. So that's going to be our first price target. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to actually hit the price target. It could easily go through. I mean, it could hit and go through. Anything can really happen here. So that is the weekly outlook for SPY. If I want to drill this down to the daily to show you a little bit more of why we could be looking at a potential downward week, here it is. Number one, this is, as I said, very inside from the previous week. So what we have here is the Fed day that drove things up on the 7th, and then consolidation, and then a big downward move. So it was decided in the week that they didn't really like what the Fed said, and we drove things down a little bit. So Friday gave us a little bit of recovery, not much. This is a failed 2 down. So what we could be looking at coming into Monday, if I zoom this in and go ahead and chart a new level for you here, over $408.44, that would be a 2-2 reversal, and that would be our daily entry there. So I'll put that one in green for us here. And I'll make it bold too, so that we can see that a little bit better, just right above the monthly high. But as we see here, this previous month high is acting as some resistance. So we need to get over this $408.16. We need to get over that to be able to hopefully move on up and get a 322 reversal with a price target of $414.57. I definitely like that magnitude. Now, the key thing to note is that we'd still be stuck in an inside week. A lot of people just don't trade things that are on an inside week because they're looking for swing plays, and you're looking for market structure breaks in that regard. So if you are waiting for that type of setup where you can actually swing something, then definitely wait for SPY to break the previous week's high or the previous week's low. All right, so that's SPY. Let's move on to technology. We'll look at QQQ now, and a lot of the same. So let me switch this to the weekly, and we'll zoom out. So again, the weekly, we had an inside week. I'll zoom in. We have been in this downward channel, and we had that with SPY too. We sort of have broken out of this. Now the question is, are we going to continue to move up? Well, again, the inside week, same rules apply here. It could go either direction. The upward target is definitely shallow. So above $311.03 to $313.68. That's our first price target there on the weekly. And on the downside, looks like we need to get below like around 297. No, it's the low of this candle. 297.25 to 289.89 there. So that's going to be our price target. And really the same rules apply. We are in a weekly pivot machine gun setup with SPY as well, or QQQ as well. And you know what? I might switch back to SPY to look at that too. I'm just noticing this since I'm doing this kind of on the fly. Haven't looked at these charts ahead of time really. So the pivot machine gun is where we're going to be looking at some sort of abrupt reversal to move things down. So be on the lookout for news, economic data coming out this coming week, and I'll mention that towards the end if I remember here. So the pivot machine gun is where you have 5 consecutive higher lows or more. So the monthly is also a higher low on the weekly, and then we have this one here down from the end of December that's also our first pivot point there to start moving things up. So we could see a very abrupt move to the downside in the coming week. So that is my worry there with QQQ. And let me go back to SPY right quick just to see if that has the pivot. Yep. So that has the pivot machine gun set up as well. Right here, right here, right here, and right here, and then here, and then here. So again, be on the lookout for an abrupt move down if we do start getting some downside play. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say go target, the 374.77 area or $377.83. That's a really far away price target, especially if you're playing a weekly. I don't see that happening in 1 week, but definitely look at these price targets, and $400.28 is definitely what I would be initially aiming at. And then we will look at DIA, and a lot of the same. We had another inside week, but DIA, Dow, so the banks, the manufacturers, a lot of the, the staple stocks that we, the staple companies that we use are in the Dow. So we have another inside week, but this one's green. But look at this. This was a 2 the previous week here. The last week in January was a 2, but it was a doji. So, I mean, this is sideways movement if I've ever seen it, right? We have, this might as well be a 1 candle with how this finished. It's not, because it went 2 up, but I mean, the doji is definitely indecision. This inside bar that we had last week, pretty much a doji as well, with another solid amount of indecision. So, again, this could go either way. So be on the lookout and look for the breaks. So if I move into scroll here, what we're looking at is over $342.56 for a really, really shallow price target. I would almost aim at the monthly high here of $343.49. That's going to act. I mean, look at the resistance that it's been. This has been acting as resistance since the beginning of the year. So that's definitely a key level that I would be waiting for the Dow to get over. And then we have below, the weekly low is $335.95. We're sitting right at that monthly 50% fib level. So that's a key level there. If we break down through that, our price target is super shallow, going to be the low of this week here. So let me go ahead and put a white line on there, even though we're not going to be able to see it. I guess I'll zoom in more. So the low of $335.58 there. So that is incredibly shallow. If we do break through that, since all these levels are pretty much around the same area, I'd probably be targeting $332.55 for a downward move. And then the further move would be $329.35. So then that would pretty much take us to the monthly low. So personally, barring any splendid economic data coming out, I don't really see much of a move to the upside, just because we've seen so much resistance around this area. But I also don't see a massive move to the downside, to take us to like a 2 down month just yet. So that is, these are all things that I look at every morning before I really decide what I'm going to trade. That's the importance of looking at the indexes, because these really dictate, the stocks dictate how the indexes move, but then you can look at the indexes and see, in a nice summary, instead of looking at all your stocks that you want to trade, how you think price action is going to go. So that is the recap for no, wow, that's not even the recap. That is actually the outlook for the week here. MU's one that I have on my watch list this week, mainly for a downside play. That is obviously if the markets are moving to the downside. So keep an eye on those indexes that we talk about in the market: Outlook, SPY, QQQ, DIA. And here's why. Well, if we look at the weekly, we have a inside week, as with so many other things that we have this week. In fact, pretty much all of my plays are inside week plays. I'm looking for that break of high or low. Now, I don't necessarily like the high side play, but we can get some money out of it. Here's why. So if we're looking at a 212 to the upside, so that would be a 212 reversal, we are getting in over $62.39 is our price target, and our our entry, and our first price target is going to be $62.93. So a little bit over a dollar move. Now that is not too bad with MU, especially if you're trading, the weeklies. That works out pretty decently. But what we have is some pretty solid resistance between the monthly high, the previous month's high, and the previous quarter's high. And that is both around let's just say $64.40 to put it in between the $64.34 monthly high and the quarterly high of $64.44. So we really need to see a breakout above this level here to be able to see a lot of a strong breakout above this level here to be able to say that we are ready for some sort of upside move that's going to be substantial. Downside, the initial price target is pretty shallow too, below $59.25, and our price target is $58.65. Now, again, I like to just have price targets here because if I hit those, I definitely feel that we could get a bigger move, but I'll tighten my stop loss around here to make sure that either I'm at break even or I'm not risking as much as I initially risked in my trade in the first place. But I do think that we'll definitely end up seeing, if we end up testing this area, we'll see it test the 50% monthly Fibonacci level here at $56.95, and then we just have a lot of downward movement here. There's a fair value gap on the weekly that needs to be filled. These gaps do like to be filled, so that's something that is of an interest to me. There's also a fair value gap that's sort of been filled over here on the weekly to the upside too. So what I'm seeing here is a lot of rejection. So rejection here, and we've already gotten another rejection here. So we're sitting at pretty much a triple top right now on MU. And there's also a double bottom. So are we going to make it a triple bottom? That is the question I have. So again, MU is something that I'm really looking at for a downside play. FDX or FedEx is another on my list here. That's an inside week. Here is what it looks like. So we had a big old outside bar on the last week develop in January, and then we had this inside bar still towards the top here. Now I do like this inside bar to give me some upside movement, and I'll show you why once we flip up to a larger time level here. In this case, we're going to look at the quarterly in a second here, but what I am going to be on the lookout for, number one, is a break above this 3. I like the entry over $214.47 because that would be our 312 up. However, the very first price target is relatively shallow at $217.39. So that is definitely some concern to me. And then what we have here to the upside is a fair value gap pretty much right above that level. That is something that I would look to be filled or at least get through or towards before we see a rejection, if we're going to see one. Otherwise, what I really want to be able to see is a push up through and a market structure break over here. That's going to give us some higher highs. So that would be my really, really long play for FDX. However, if I'm going to play with market conditions and market conditions end up going down, the 312 to the downside has some splendid magnitude here. So below $205.94 is our trigger, and then I'd be aiming at the previous month's high of $193.95 all the way down to the quarterly high of $184.39 there. So the 312 to the downside definitely has a lot of magnitude, and the other thing to note is, just like the top side, there is a fair value gap here that needs to be filled, and that could definitely be something that we see, even looking around like the 50% level. That's something that we might end up seeing a bounce or a support around and then a move back up. So that is going to be FDX very quickly for you. Now, I did say I want to go to the higher time frames. So let me get rid of this drawing here and show you why I do like this for a longer upside move. Scroll sideways. Now, here's what it looks like on the quarterly. So this is a 212. Now, we haven't exactly completed the 212, right? If we were looking at the 212 reversal, our price target is actually $240.90. $240.90 up here. So that's definitely something that could still happen here if we want to give this play longer to develop. We still have another month and a half, a month and 3 weeks of movement that could happen here. So if you're really looking for a longer play, FedEx is definitely something that you could be looking at for a move to 240.90. Again, set your stop losses accordingly if you're going to be doing that. I don't swing plays very often, and this is definitely one that I will probably actually end up putting in my long-term portfolio, but at the same time, I'm going to keep a tight stop loss on it to make sure that I keep my losses minimal. DraftKings, or DKING, is one of those that's on my list that's not actually an inside week, and here's why. So it's a failed 2-up on the weekly with a shooter candle. I like that because to me that indicates that we have some downward movement ahead. So I'm looking for a 2-2 reversal to the downside on the weekly. If I zoom in here, poor DraftKings just hasn't been doing so well, but here's what I'm thinking here would be my game plan. So entry below $15.56 on the weekly would be the 2 down trigger for that 2-2 reversal. Now, the very first price target we have here is going to be $14.56 to complete the 2-2 reversal. Now, we do have the previous month's high here of $15.31 in our way. That's probably going to act as some support. So what I will do here is set a very tight stop loss on this play, because if it does decide it wants to come back within the previous week, then at least I wouldn't be out too much. Now, when we're looking at this, we also have a PMG setup here. So again, another price target, another price target, another price target, and then we have our monthly low, and then we have our quarterly low. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 price targets there. 6, I'm sorry, all the way down to the last pivot point here on the quarter. So we have 6 price targets that indicate we have a PMG setup. So I am definitely looking at some downward movement here. If we do end up getting a 2-up, this isn't something that I would really be taking to the upside right now, because that'd be just a 2-up continuation, nothing really actionable. I just want to see some retrace so that I can get into this play before I end up going long on it. So that is going to be DraftKings in a nutshell. If I zoom out, we can pretty much see that it's also been moving sideways quite a bit. We do have sort of a trend break, to almost a trend break. So I would definitely be waiting for it to break out of this trend to the upside and then probably retrace back down to like the previous week's high before I decide to get into something long there, like I said. So DraftKings is pretty simple. I'm looking for the 2-2 reversal to the downside. And GM is another on my list. Not an inside bar, which is nice on the weekly, but what we do have is a 2-up shooter candle that's formed. And here is why I'm looking at a potential downside move. We'll look at all the time frames, starting with the weekly, and then move back to higher time frames. So this, like I said, is a shooter candle. It's not a failed 2 down, but what we do have here is the quarterly level, which we'll look at in a minute. We broke through. We hit our price target if we're going to look at this on a larger time frame, and then came back down into it. So what I'm really looking at here on the weekly is a 2-2 reversal to the downside with some crazy magnitude all the way down to $36.22. So below $40.74, I'd be looking for a move down to $36.22. We do have the monthly high, the previous monthly high here at $39.73 that is going to probably act as support. So be aware of that. Tighten your stop loss because you'll already be in some serious profit. So definitely keep an eye on that area there. But like I said, I'm going to be looking for the previous month's or the previous week's low, and we also have the 50% monthly fib here at $36.56. So that is going to be GM on the weekly. If we move to the monthly, we did get a 212 reversal. Now our price target for the 212 reversal was going to be, had been, the high of this 2-bar that started the pattern. So $41.38 was the high. So we hit that, GM hit that, and it's come back inside itself here. So what we'd be looking at is to have GM now come back on the inside month to retest this 50% monthly fib area there on the monthly. And then if I look at GM on the quarterly here, we had a 212 reversal, and we've hit our price target, which would have been right here at $42.36, and we started coming back inside. So that is why I'm looking at GM for a larger downside move, at least on the weekly level. Now, if I wanted to look at GM at a long-term level, we have a fair value gap up here between $44.53 to $52.25 that needs to be filled. So that is definitely something that I would be looking at doing long term if I wanted to get into GM for the long haul there. If I go down to the monthly level, that's what that fair value gap looks like. So we just had this big old slide down. We had the break of market structure here. So we had the strong slide down, and from here, again, we're looking to come back inside the market structure that had previously broken, and probably look at a area to be able to see where smart money was buying. But that's going to be something that's beyond the scope of this. So that is why, again, I'm looking at GM specifically for this coming week for a little bit of a downside move, just to be able to capture some of the retracement that we see here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? So my watch for the weekly watch is going to be Apple. Let's take a quick look here at the monthly chart. We have a 2 up from the previous month here. Right now, it's above the 8 EMA line. We're above all the moving averages, the 50, the 100, the 200, and this is the 600-day moving average, so it's looking positive still. If you look down here, the MACD is kind of diverging downward still, but it's above the 0 line over here. And the chalk and money flow is also trying to go back down to the 0 line. But also notice that in the past, every time it came down to the 0 line, see how it bounced, it came down and then it bounced, and then we came right back down, but we still bounced, so we never quite made it below the 0 line and never quite stayed under it for a while. So let's move over to the weekly chart. Here is your weekly chart. So it's an inside week, which is good. It means it's a little correction on the week. So we need that for a stock. It's a good breather. If you look down here, MACD has just crossed, I believe last week, and the money flow at the same time went above the 0 line. So I think we can have more room to the upside if it stays above the call entry once it breaks it. So the call entry, if it goes 212 up, you would see 155.23 as your entry point. The first take profit, you see resistance here at 157.26 area. So take a quick profit there. Then profit target 2 would be 164.26, and then profit target 3 at 171.05. If it goes 212 to the downside, I would enter in at 149.22. Your first profit would be around 148.27. Then you have the next one here at 148.450-ish, then 140 as your final take profit for the week. So this is a weekly range. That's why it's the range is a bit bigger. And that's my take on Apple.
That's going to wrap up this edition of the Weekly Watch. Make sure you join our free trading Discord with the link in the description field to get intraday strat setups with our custom bots. Also, remember to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that bell to get notified when we drop another video. Happy trading!